Good morning. My name is Samantha Maribel. I'm with Melco's application team. We're doing our design shop talk today. Try to do them on a weekly basis, see what questions you might have. We stream both on YouTube and Facebook. So if you have questions while we're live, type them in the chat. If you think of something outside of this, that's cool. Put them in on the forum online. We will get you a link to that at the end. But yeah, just type them in, and next time we have the talk, it'll be there waiting for us to look at. So did I turn on the sound? It looks like I did. Let me make sure both platforms are actually alive. It's alive. Excellent. All right. So I'll start with the questions I was sent in ahead of time. I've got another monitor set up over here so I can keep an eye on the chats to see what comes in while we're live. But type any questions in the chat. Don't send them privately. I don't have an easy way to find those while we are actually live today. All right, how do I wirelessly transfer designs from DesignShop to Bernina E16 Pro? Good morning, Sherry. Thanks for joining. So it's not really a transfer per se, but basically what you got to do is you set up a shared drive on your computer, and then you basically go to your tablet and connect to that shared drive. So what you would do is from DesignShop, you just save your designs out into that folder on your computer. And when you go to your machine, you go to load a design, you'd go to that shared folder, and all your designs would be there. I use it all the time out there. It works fantastic. There should be a help document on that. So if someone's not on to find that for you, actually, let me quick go see. Oh, there it is. So there's the link for you of setting up a shared network source drive, and that's how you would do it for your Bernina E16 Pro. That's also the same way you do it for the Summit. All right, so we did get you those links in the comments for you. Where is the WAC template and how do I use it? I don't know, because I don't know what WAC stands for to be able to help you, or what you need a template for. Wide angle cap template, maybe, but I don't know what that template would be because it's just a rectangle. So if you could kind of clarify what you're looking for, I'd be happy to try to help you find it or point you to it. All right, so you have this question was, I've got a file, looks like this. I could do an auto convert, and yeah, okay. So basically you've got this thing and it auto converted and it dropped out sections. So when you do the auto convert feature, there is a so wide angle cap tool. I don't know what you would need a template for that. So that I still don't. I mean, it's a rectangle. What are we needing here? I'll do it. So right here, if I come here, I go to wide angle cap frame, apply, there we go. There's your so field. So I'm not quite sure what we need a template for. I guess I need a little more context. So yeah, there's the radius on the back. So maybe that's what you're talking about. So we did get you a link to that, the chart. So that's to kind of sew over the back of the arch. So maybe that. So you can do the front and the sides. So that's going to be a personal thing, right? So there's not really a template per se. What you would do is, and of course I don't have a hat here. You would measure. All right, I'm going to draw it. So that basically said they typed in, so I can do both the front and the side, right? So this is how I would do it. Operations, convert to vector. All right, so I would take my cap and I'd measure the front. All right, so whatever that is. So let's say it's 5 inches. I don't have a cap here or a ruler, so I'm just going to say it's 5, right? So that is the area for the front of the hat. Then I would go to the side and go, all right, for the side, it's then going to be, I don't know, 2 inches typically, right? So I come over here and say 2 inches width. And then my next thing I would do is I would measure where I want my side design to be centered relative to the center of the cap, right? So again, I'd put some tape on my design and go, all right, I want this one 5 inches away or something like that from the center of the cap, whatever it might be. So I'd make that, if it were 5 inches, from the center, and I position this so it's centered there. So now this gives me, my design would be this no bigger than this and centered on there. My front would be centered on this. So that way when I go to sew it, if I line up with the center of the hat, this is now centered, 5 inches over. What is that number? It's whatever it is for your particular hat, right? It's going to change depending on how the hat was constructed and where you want your design to be. But that's when I'm doing a single design like that, where I'm doing a center and then a side, I lay it out. Sherry, does that help any? So these are just vectors. So I literally position them where I want them. And then whatever design I'm going to put, whether it's a text or a logo, I just make sure they're centered within those boxes. All right. So I was in the middle of talking about this. So, okay, Sherry, I'm glad that helps. See, with caps, it really does vary based on the actual physical cap. All right, so doing this swoop coming around here, when we do an auto convert, right, right here, flatten overlap, right? So when you have overlaps, you can say how big or how small the overlap is, and it's going to subtract out any overlaps from there, right? So in here, my guess is what's happening is the overlap is basically too small, so it's going, all right, I got to subtract everything out, therefore now it's just gone, right? I would do this one just by, personally, I would do it myself because I can do a satin stitch across here. Let me screenshot it. There. So I would come in here, and rather than doing an auto convert, I would just use my column tool, and that way you'll get a nice satin stitch. It'll be all pretty, and I would just run around it this way. And then it will be one solid satin stitch coming all the way around. Granted, I probably should have done the whole one and not just this side of it, now that I'm staring at the top. But, there. So I would just do one satin like that. Or you can do the whole thing going across and then putting another one across the top, right? So then you could do the red one going across the top of it. And then it would be completely connected. And it goes really quick to do it, right? Right. The only issue with that is you see now I've got these fill stitches on there. So you can adjust that by doing, well, if that's the actual size of it, you can use like a common auto split, and it'll put like that split line down the center where necessary. Or you can split it across. And the red satin needs to be at least 1 millimeter wide. Okay, so on that, for your red satin, if I did an auto convert, I could use this. See the artwork, because it's pixelated, it does weird things, so I would just do this. So as far as the 1 millimeter wide, that you would measure it and then add pull comp or just adjust it accordingly. So I guess I should have measured it first rather than just going straight into this, but here you go. At the end, that's where you're going to have an issue because it's coming down to a point. So I tend to slant the stitches there so the stitches stay longer, but I get a point on it. See that? So it looks like a point, but it's actually sewing this way. So that's red. This here is black, right? So I don't like the auto split. I probably would do a split line instead. See, this is where, what's the right, or just to look at it. No, I don't like that either. So let's just go back to a plain satin. And then I'm going to add a split line on it. Right here. Anyway, so you can just play with it. So this will allow more of it to be satin. or I could do it as 2 pieces, which should probably just do it as 2 pieces because that one, the stitches are still too long. Although my design might be too large. All right, so as far as checking the 1 millimeter, yeah, so I could do it that way. I would just measure it here using this and see what we're at, 20 points. So that's bigger. That's bigger. So I would just measure it using the ruler. And if necessary, you either adjust the points or you can add a little bit of pull offset to add. Okay. So that would be my suggestions on there. But yeah, these right here, I'd need to do this as a second piece or change it back to the auto split to get rid of those. But maybe my design is just bigger than it should be since I just screenshot it and went with it. Fill auto split. I like that one. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Anyway, some ideas for you to think about. All right, Kyle, did that help at all? I kind of dig that. Anyway, all right, hopefully that helps. All right, let's see. What else do we have? I've created a complex fill with satin letters on top for a beanie. I want to remove the overlap in the complex fill so the stitching of the letters isn't so dense. No, all right. Kind of. Depending on the thickness of the letters, it won't make any sense to do that. So let's go pull up the design and look at it. So file, open, where did I put it? Beanie, that one. All right, so how big are these things? That's gonna be first and foremost. So here's your thing. If I go 41 points, I mean, I guess you could subtract it then. So what do we have? Oh, well, that's gonna be part of your problem there. You do. This is actually a good way to do it. You're doing it center out so that you're not developing puckers on it. So that's cool. But it leaves you limited options of how you can do your subtractions, right? So if I come over here, there, I could say subtract, and it's subtracted there. Click this. So then I select my next fill, and then that, and then I could say subtract, and it subtracts it. It leaves these weird points in there. I don't want those, so I'm going to go delete those by selecting them and deleting it. All right, so now if I turn these off, you'll see I now have that area subtracted out from the fill. That was just the underlay, so let's look at the complex. So if I take the complex, select it first, then the number, then I can come over here and say subtract, and now it removed those stitches there. All right, so if I, again, let me turn off the numbers. So you see now I have a hole cut out there for it. So same with this guy. I can select that fill, there's the number. So select the fill first, hold your control key down, select the number. Then I can click on the subtract. And again, now I have a hole, number 1 sized in there. And you can just do that for all these. Make sure you select your fill first. Then the control key, the number, hit subtract. I leave overlap, so I have 10 points set up. If you right click on the subtract tool, so click that, control. If I right click on this, I can change that overlap to be something different. So if you don't like 10 or 7 or 0, you can change it, whatever you want it to be. So there, again. So no, it doesn't have to be complex fills. You just have to select them in order. Right, so select what you're subtracting from first, and then hold your control key and subtract the item you're going to subtract from it. So there you go. Yeah, so click the fill, hold the control key, click the number, and then click subtract. So it's what you want to put a hole in, click that first. Then control, select what you're subtracting second. Okay, yeah, and then, yeah, control, click, and then right click on this, and that will give you your overlap before you click it. Cool? All right, so hopefully that helps. What else? Did it? I think something was typed in. Let me jump there. All right, I've been trying to create a cross stitch design with version 11. When changing to a new color, it yeah. So 12, I don't use the cross stitch much except in 12 because it works really well there. In 11, I believe it does weird things with the colors, which is what you're seeing. So in 11, what I used to do is create a whole bunch of overlapping cross stitch things rather than just one, so I could have just a single color cross stitch. That's what I personally did. Again, I didn't find that to be fun in my opinion, but it worked. So that's what I did, is just on here, create the cross stitch, one color, and then I copy paste, change the color, and do the second color I wanted. And that way I wouldn't have to worry about all that. But I know 12, it works great. I don't know if they did the service pack on 11, quite frankly. I can find out. All right. Not the most satisfying answer, but I just don't know if they did it. We did that one. Let's see. Any other questions? All right. I created the 2 as an applique to be stitched first under the dinosaur. When I created, I used the applique button. Is there a way to delete this stuff right here? Yeah. Okay. So that's not what I wanted. I wanted here. Close that. No. I'm just going to make a new file. I'm going to do a circle. And I'm only doing this for expediency. All right, so 2 things that overlap, and I'm going to make these both appliques. Control, so select them both. Click on this guy. I'm going to say make him an applique, replace. Lovely. Now I have 2 appliques that overlap, right? But there's satin stitches under here, and I don't want those. I want to get rid of them. So how do we do that? Right? So I want to get rid of those satin stitches. First and foremost, set up the applique how you want it, right? So under properties, if you want to make changes to densities, how much is overlapped, whatever you want to change relative to this. So maybe you want this to be not quite so on the outside. So let's say 50, 50. All right, so maybe you want that line to be there. Whatever it is, do that first. Then take this guy, right click, operations, convert object to wireframe. All right, so now I have this in its pieces where I can modify and address each one of these things separately, right? So I can come over here and I can leave that zigzag because I still want to hold the fabric down, or maybe I want to sculpt it differently. Maybe that's what you want to do. But just for argument's sake, let's say I want to leave that full fabric there and I just want to get rid of the satin stitch. So I'm going to come over here, add a point here, add a point there, click my point, hold this down, say split element at selected points, and now all I'm going to do is start deleting points. There we go. So my satin stitch is now gone, right? So if I then, let's say I wanted my fabric to look a little different. Well, again, I could put a point here, delete this guy, make that one a curve. Let's, oops, control. There we go. Make it a little bit closer here. I should have put that point over, but you know, so there we go. So maybe I want to sculpt all that fabric out. So I could do it that way as well, right? So just modifying my shape. But I think all you needed to do was delete those satin stitches. Has anyone purchased Summit? I'm sure they have. I have a Summit out there. So yeah, Summit's pretty fun. All right. So that's what I would suggest for removing those stitches. Again, on this one, if you wanted to make that instead of a zigzag, you can come over here. Again, split element. I could even split this element here. Select that guy, and maybe I want to convert that over. Instead of it being a zigzag, maybe I just want to do a running stitch. So I want to leave that, but I just want a running stitch so I can move quick. again. Oh my gosh, there we go. All right, so I can do that where I've got my zigzag, I do a running stitch to the other side. Now I can do my satin stitches. Okay, so lots of options for you, but the key is just once you're happy with the applique, convert it over and it will give you all the pieces. So now you can do what you want with it. Another question typed in. Yeah, someone else posted they purchased the Summit. All right, I have an edge. I have to edge an item with an old-fashioned scallop to digitize the scallops separately. Since they're each slightly different, how do I connect them after I have finished? So with that sort of thing, all right, I assume, I'm just trying to think of an application I can talk to without having an example here. Okay. I've seen this done quite a bit where control, it's like this, control. All right, and then people are kind of doing an applique with scallops along here, right? So not 100% sure how you're digitizing it, but let's see. Sorry, this is why me and examples on the fly are always entertaining, because I try to go fast and then I make a mess. All right, so let's, oops, come back. I'm just drawing art. So let's, is this the sort of thing you're doing? Where you've got scallops on there? I mean, really all you would do is find whatever art you want and then pay attention to them, right? So let's say I'm doing this sort of design. I really don't like that first one, but there we go. I'll scroll down. Okay, so let's make it a color we can see. This first one is horrible, so I'm going to fix it. There we go. Hi there. Thanks for joining today. All right, so if I said that was my first scallop, when I go to the next one, what I would do is just do the same little satin stitch and scroll over and just start where I was and keep going, right? So I can make them different and just keep. I do this, the scallops are of a zigzag, and afterwards I do a hand buttonhole stitch. I'm having a really hard time visualizing it, of what you're talking about. Scallops are a zigzag. Well, then you just do the zigzag, right? Do you have a, if you have a picture or a link where I can look at of something to at least get me in the right direction, because I think my brain is stuck on edge scallops for some reason. So I'm very sorry. Okay. Moving back just a little bit. When I delete the satin stitches in the two applique like I showed, does DesignShop put tie-off stitches on it? Or do you have to manually add them? So as long as your properties are set up, to have stitches and whatnot, tie-in and tie-offs, it's going to be fine. So it will do the, it'll keep the tie-in and tie-outs. I was trying to Google what you just posted in the comments as far as designs, and I see things like this. That's tatting. I tat, that's the only reason I know that. Or it might be lace work, but I tat a lot. I don't know. What other examples are there up here? Because I don't see scallops. All right. This one you might have to send me a picture so I can look at. Sorry, I'm trying to answer a question on here that's being typed in, I don't know how to help at the moment. Okay, so the follow up, it will always stitch continuously if I overlap. Yes. So let me go over that. So right here, this starts here, it ends there. This next element is going to start there. And notice the green circle is over the, or right near this propeller. The propeller is where the prior element ends. So you can always check your work by hitting this update trims. As long as an auto trim doesn't appear, you know that you have your starts and stops right, so it will continue to sew without having a trim. So again, like after this one, if I want, as long as I start my design near this propeller, it's going to continue to sew continuously around without a trim. And again, I can check that by doing update auto trims. Now, if I take this and put it in the middle, right? So it says this one, then that one. Notice when I update trims, it puts all these auto trims in there. So as long as your starts and stops are near that white little propeller and they're in order, notice I can move that and just say update trims, which is this button right here, and all those trims go away. So that's kind of my check the work. Okay, so we got there. I'm glad that I helped. Sorry, I was struggling trying to understand your application. I apologize. Text is always fun that way. All right, so we did this. The trims I talked about, so you're good to go. I don't think I missed any other questions typed in. Did I? Not yet. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the one sent in. I want to use this font. Would this font work for Puff? No, it's not a Puff font. Athletic Block 2 color is not a Puff font. So if you want to use this as a Puff font, you're going to have to set it up how you want it, convert it to wireframe, and then go and edit and cap all these ends in here. So cap that end, and add caps all around here underneath so that it would actually cut, and then you would actually have to change all your densities to be appropriate for Puff. So, I mean, you can turn it into a Puff font, but that's going to take some work because Puff designs, remember, your needle penetrations are what's physically cutting the puff, right? So if I have, going back to DesignShop, so if I have a satin stitch, and this is probably not going to look like a satin because I made it huge. Let's make it smaller so it's satin. There we go. All right, so if I have a satin stitch and it's sewing this way, nothing is cutting this edge of the puff, right? So I would have to come back in here and add stitches underneath like this in this direction, but that would sew underneath it so that now I have needle penetrations along here to cut those threads. Now, to cut that puff, not threads. So you use that font? Yes, but you're going to have to modify it. So Athletic 2 color S. Right, so I'm going to have to go operations, convert to wireframe, move that around, and then underneath here, I'm going to have to cap all these edges, right? So I'm going to have to come in and do some digitizing work under here and there. Okay, so yes, you can. It's just going to take some work. All right. All right, so for lettering density, when it's on auto, it shows 100%. What does it mean? Good question. All right. Hi, Lorena, thanks for joining. All right, so density can be auto. Okay, let's go to a normal font. And my doggy, let me open up the car. All right, so I'm sorry, my dog's deciding to bark, so. Oh, he's just outside, cool. All right, so text, block 2. All right, so I've got some text here. I'm going to delete this and that, get it out of the way. All right, when I go into the properties, auto, it's not just a, on this density. So this applies to anything, not just for lettering, okay? So anytime auto's turned on for anything, whether it's auto on stitch type, auto on density, auto on underlay, anytime you turn on these autos, there's a box over here that pops up with 3 dots. That's kind of your, what is it doing? All right. So what auto is physically doing is it's looking at the length of the column stitch, and based on what that column stitch is, it changes the density. So it's a dynamic density, right? So for really small things, 10 points, it's going to do a higher density. All right. As you start getting larger and larger, the density comes down to a point, right? So if you have something like, let's say you're working on tiny things and you want the density to be 6, or you want it to be 2 for some reason, whatever you want it to be, you can change this chart and create your own auto, right? This is just what's set up. So anytime you do a percentage, it's going to take this and it's going to scale it up and down. So it's going to go smaller or larger based on what percentage you have. So increasing the density or decreasing it. So that's all it's doing is auto uses this table, and your percentage is now going to say use, 100% density, 90% of it, 110 of it, those sorts of things. So it's going to scale that density around. And same thing with your underlay. So underlay, if you've got the 3 dots, you can click on that. It brings up this, and this shows you from 0 to 20 points, it uses a center walk. So the width of an element. When it starts getting a little larger, but not too big, it's using an edge walk. Once you start getting to where it's a little bit wider, you can fit more under there. It's using a zigzag and an edge walk. And then it's doing this crosshatch fill once it's getting very large. So that's what the auto density or underlay is doing for you. So yeah, anytime you see auto, there's these boxes. You turn that off, it goes away, right? So anytime you have auto, that's where you can define and see what it's doing for you. Okay. Yeah. A density of 3 or 3.2. That seems really low for lettering, but if that, everyone likes what they like, so that's cool. Yeah, you can just change the table and then auto will work for you how you want, or turn off auto and type in the density you like. All right, so I think those were all the questions that were sent in ahead of time. This is where they send them in. All right. So if you have questions, before, after, during, before the talk or after the talk, submit them to here. So don't forget about them. You can type them in and I'll get to them on the next talk, because I go and pull them all those submissions up and create examples as needed. Any other ones before I call it a day? I think I covered all the ones, that were typed in. I'm just scrolling through those to make sure. It looks like I got them all. Excellent. All right, and I apologize for the scallops. I'm glad we got to the answer the hard way with me stumbling around, but yeah. All right, so don't forget, we do these on a weekly basis, every Thursday now. Send in your questions ahead of time, and we have a link in the comments here so that you can get to this without having to screenshot this, right? So to be able to submit your questions, look up past episodes, search for those sorts of things. Let us know what you want to learn about, and we will try to get it done for you. So I think that is everything. I'm going to call it a day. Let's see. Can you show me how to manually create an edge walk for a 3D puff font underlay? Yeah, sure. Manually create an edge walk. That's all right. So how big is this? Not very big. I'm just making art. All right, so I'm going to take this, operations, convert to vector. All right, cool. I've got a font here. All right, so I can do it a few different ways. So this is just a vector. I can come over to my walk and eyeball it, right? So I can just eyeball this around, which gets the job done, but it's not very precise, right? So I'm going to stop here and come back rather than doing the whole thing and clicking forever. So I could do it this way. Shift enter to close the shape. Cool. So I can draw it, not exactly precisely, but I can draw it, right? Or I can take this, cancel that. Take my vector, go object, offset outline. Let's say I want it 10 points back. I can say -10. oops, undo. I need to copy and then paste. Now, object, offset, -10. So -10 will push it 10 points back from the edge. So I just colored it so you can see what it did. So that's 10 points all the way around. So now I can just take this, say convert to a normal stitch, replace it, and now I've got a walk stitch that's roughly 10 points back all the way around. Okay, so that's an edge walk. If you want it more points back, you can do that. So like I can take this, again, copy, paste, object, offset outlines, -20 maybe. I don't know, whatever number you like. And then again, I can convert over to walk, replace, there we go. That's a quick way to do it. I like doing everything quick. All right, any other questions? But of course you can then just do a walk and do it yourself. So just trace around. And like I said, it gets the job done. And since it's getting covered up, do you really need it that precise is the next question? Probably not, but I mean, there. So I drew it manually. All right. All right, let me quick look. Black Mountain, thanks for joining, and Kyle and Lorena and Beth. Excellent. All right. Yeah, and a lot of good questions this week. That's awesome. All right, anything else before I call it a day? Like I said, I'll be back next Thursday, and we'll do it again. Hopefully I won't flounder as much trying to figure out what the questions are. It's all good though. You guys have a fantastic weekend. I will talk to you next week. Bye everyone.